Chapter 4. The Yearning. A longing to return to being. I desire you more than food and drink. My body, my senses, my mind hunger for your taste. I can sense your presence in my heart. Although you belong to all the world, I wait with silent passion for one gesture, one glance from you. Rumi. If you think about the opening you had, what do you feel?
Happiness, joy, contentment. But it's one step removed because it's the memory of those feelings rather than having them now. So it's bittersweet because the memory is beautiful, but it's tempered by the fact that it went, and I don't know how to get it back. Is there any way you can make choiceless awareness appear? How do you get it?
And so the game goes on.
What do you mean?
Your personality thinks it's found a new toy to play with, a new practice, a new goal to distract you with. It wants to be able to say to you, when I learn how to get choiceless awareness, I can be happy. It's totally understandable. That's what happened after my teenage openings. I tried to force that clarity of vision to stay, but ironically, that intention is a surefire way for the personality to stay in control and to not experience choiceless awareness.
This is confusing. It's obviously really beneficial, so of course I want to try and get it.
The point is, you can't get it. Was it you who got it on the village green? No. It would be more accurate to say it appeared when you, i.e. the personality, was not there in the driving seat. Choiceless awareness can't be possessed by personality because it comes from beyond it. We've ended up in the same catch-22 situation as when we discussed trying to find liberation through practice. That's because choiceless awareness is a central attribute of being. You can't get choiceless awareness. You can't make it appear. It happens through grace when you're in contact with being.
What do you mean by grace in this context?
I mean, life has a way of reaching us in the form of experiences that push us beyond our usual limits, like your opening. The personality is upheld by our belief in it. Transcendent experiences momentarily take us to a perspective beyond that belief, beyond personality. These are gifts from life. We don't earn them. It has nothing to do with being good, spiritual, or having put in years of dedicated practice. Grace descends in all sorts of ways and situations, not just happy, blissful ones, like openings. As I've mentioned, choiceless awareness can appear when the suffering of personality creates a kind of pressure, a sharpening of focus that pushes you beyond your normal operating mode. What this means practically is that you're no longer able to deny or look away from suffering, as happens in personality awareness.
This reminds me of a documentary about suicidal people who jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and survived. Apparently very few do survive, but of those who lived to tell the tale, most said that as soon as they jumped, the problems that had driven them to suicide seemed irrelevant.
That's a pretty radical way to experience a taste of life beyond personality. The suffering doesn't have to be quite so dramatic to invoke an experience of choiceless awareness. For example, it plays a part in the recovery process of alcoholics. Usually personality awareness means that the drinking problem is not acknowledged, and so it continues. 12-step meetings start with introductions such as, I am John and I'm an alcoholic. John is affirming he's aware of the problem. There's no denial of it anymore. Moments of choiceless awareness can be a huge step forward, but they're just the beginning because the problem that's been acknowledged, such as John's alcoholism, has roots deep within his psychology. This means that as you move forward and go deeper into what's been repressed, more resistance can come into play. You can get stuck and then lose that original experience of choiceless awareness. Taking the example of John, it's been uncomfortable for him to admit to himself that he is an alcoholic. That has taken choiceless awareness and willingness to pluck up the courage to go to the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and come out publicly with his problem by declaring, "I'm an alcoholic," is another huge hurdle. But having done that, he feels like resting. He's wounded, he's vulnerable, but able to get by with the support of the group. So there's a danger here of getting too comfortable and becoming stuck after grace has given you the gift of the opening. What happens then is John ends up with a new identity, the alcoholic personality. Everywhere John goes, he announces, "I don't drink alcohol. I'm a recovering alcoholic." So the very act of stopping the denial of his alcoholism turns into an affirmation of a new identity that his personality has adopted. So these steps forward, which happen through grace, can falter and disappear. Your childhood openings were also neutralized when your parents showed no interest and your friends ridiculed you. You were taught to hide them away, ignore them, and then you lost touch with them. They were like flowers starved of sunlight. All openings and breakthroughs can be swallowed up by personality, which is infinitely adaptable in neutralizing threats to its dominance.
That's what's happened after your openings too.
Yes, after each opening passed, I'd do anything to bring them back.
How?
By writing about them. I wrote pages and pages, wringing the experience of them from my memory, trying to bring them into my everyday reality. I wanted to follow them and find out where they led. It was a yearning to return to being. To differentiate this yearning, to wake up from the dream, from other kinds of yearning, let's give it a capital Y.
Where do you think yearning comes from?
That's a good question. I've never thought about it before. It's certainly not the personality. Following that call back home is the last thing that personality wants to do, because that path leads to its dissolution.
So how do you explain the existence of this yearning?
I don't, because I don't need to. You don't have to understand something for it to exist. Most people don't really understand how electricity works, but we know that if we switch on a lamp, the bulb will light up.
But if I pushed you to try to answer where that yearning comes from?
I'd say there's a pattern in human life which I've outlined in the first collection of these discussions. We're born in the original state of being, and then gradually the personality takes over. That state is forgotten, and then we live in the dream that the personality creates. But it seems that in some people, that original state of being is not totally forgotten. There's a distant primal memory of it that survives. It's from this memory that the yearning to wake up from the dream arises.
Up until now, you've mostly used the phrase the natural state to refer to life beyond personality. Now you're talking about waking up from the dream of personality.
Yes, up until now that phrase, the natural state, has been appropriate. It's natural because we're born with it, and it's a state because when we become identified with personality, it passes. But now we're starting to talk about the possibility of returning to that viewpoint as an adult, after the dream of personality has become established. So now the approach is different. Rather than the natural state being a gift that's just part of who we are in our innocence as children, it's returned to from the point of view of experience. So it becomes appropriate to use the phrase waking up from the dream of personality, because it refers to the approach to the natural state from experience.
If choiceless awareness is needed to wake up from the dream of personality, yet there's nothing you can do to make it appear, how does anyone wake up?
You can't make choiceless awareness appear, but it can appear through grace, just as it did in your opening. It can happen that a faint taste of choiceless awareness comes with you back into your everyday life. It's as if the experience has been so strong that it lingers. There's an imprint of it in your normal daily consciousness.
So this isn't just a memory of choiceless awareness from the opening that you're talking about?
No, it's the actual experience of it. It may not be very strong, but it can give you a distance, a perspective on your life that wasn't there before.
Without there being an actual opening, you mean?
Yes, an opening momentarily stops you in your tracks because its viewpoint is so strong and different from your everyday consciousness. What I'm talking about isn't so dramatic. At first, you may hardly even notice it's there.
I'm not totally clear on what you mean.
Okay, the personality creates a dream. You are unconscious of that fact. You're metaphorically in the dark. Let's symbolize that as the dark of night. What I'm talking about is having a tiny light which glows in the night and illuminates the objects immediately around it.
A glow in the night? That's a pretty small light.
Yeah, it can start small, its reach is limited, but even a small light can help you see what's around you. At least you're less likely to bump into things. It's a start. If life has implanted in that person the yearning to return home, then that choiceless awareness, that glow of light, can be picked up like an ember, blown on and nurtured so it gets a bit brighter. Then it can show you the way forward.
But I thought I could do nothing to help bring this about.
You can't. This has nothing to do with seeking, having a practice, or trying to avoid the suffering of personality. It's an impulse to see through personality, a yearning to return home. Either that impulse is there or not. If it is there, a whole new world beyond the dream of personality starts opening up to you.